break. From coast to coast and way downtown. From coast to coast and way downtown. From coast to coast and way downtown. Make a pick and roll with it. Make a pick and roll with it.
Happy Tuesday. Welcome into a live edition of Betting Weekly Fast Break. I'm Doug Kezirian alongside professional handicapper Albert Nguyen, also known as Analytics Capper. And we have a loaded WNBA card, 5-game slate with some intriguing matchups. We have injury news elsewhere, and the race for the MVP market is certainly tightening up and has some interesting narratives. A bunch to get through after a day off, a dark day in the W, as we say here in show business in the Las Vegas Strip. How are you doing, my man?
I'm doing great, man. It's a full slate yet, like you said, 5 games. You briefly mentioned it, but some pretty big injuries that just popped up on the news, on the feed earlier today. So I'm excited to talk about that. But I see two plays that I really like tonight. I'd love to get into it.
Yeah, there's one I really like, but let's talk about the injury. And it's Sophie Cunningham out for the season. And she is a weapon. She's a specialist, a Bruce Bowen type player for the Indiana Fever, who are already relegated to their fourth point guard this season until Caitlin Clark comes back. And she's not coming back the next game. She is expected back relatively soon, at least before the playoffs. But this is a team that's hanging on by a thread, trailing one of the worst teams in the league by 20 plus points and somehow rallied to win in overtime. But this is a team that's, lost 3 of 4 or something along those lines. And yes, Clark's going to come back, but just how good will she be? How effective? Is she 100% not going to miss another game when she does come back? Because that's not been the case this season. So there's a lot of moving parts for this Fever team, and they are plus 1,100 to miss the playoffs. Wes and I both played futures about a week ago or so on their under 24 and a half wins plus money. So I feel pretty confident there. And I guess your point is, is there any way to like capitalize on this other than game to game? It's really tough. So in the team markets right now, we have on the screen the yes, no to make the playoffs. And maybe we'll get some, Bet Rivers has right now 23 and a half for their win total. Over is minus 159. I would play under plus 117. I think this team is just hanging on by a thread. So there's not a lot to like, even when they make the playoffs, because it's going to be some time to integrate Caitlin Clark, when she does.
Yeah, I mean, your question is there any way to capitalize on this news? I think my straightforward answer is no. I do think Sophie Cunningham is an integral part, for their team. You mentioned Bruce Bowen. The way that she was shooting the basketball the last 2 months have been extraordinary, and she brings that sense of toughness, the defense. She's definitely a force. She's definitely a weapon out there, both on offense and defense. They're gonna miss her, and we've mentioned this a couple times already on this show a few times in the past. We don't even know. Caitlin Clark will return eventually, but we don't even know if and when she's going to be 100%. Is she going to be rushed back? Is she? We just don't have enough information, enough intel on the severity of her injury, and it's been really interesting to watch this team initially not be able to play without Caitlin Clark, and then became a really legitimate team without her. So like it's going to be interesting for them to adjust and have to play with her again, right? Because she's a very central focus on the offense, and so I mean the under makes a lot of sense to me, Doug. But we've done this exercise where we've gone through a few teams, right? And we like the under on all of them, and it's hard to do that because some of these games, some of these teams, they have to end up winning, right? Some of these overs have to hit. So I don't know if I'm going to be on the under for this Fever, but it does make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, Petey chiming in on the chat section. Fever rally didn't help the under 24 and a half. No, it did not. But maybe there's a domino effect, like they relax a little bit in the next game. But certainly you want to take advantage of those times when they're down 20 plus and lock in that loss. They're running out of real estate or landing area the rest of the way. Current record right now is 19 and 16. So that's 35 total games played. That means 9 remaining, and 23 and a half would mean they'd have to go 5 and 4 to cash the over 23 and a half. So what do they have next? Well, they have the Minnesota Lynx coming up next. That is on excuse me, I misread. Okay, so that is Friday. So they have back to back, a home and home with the Minnesota Lynx. I don't know if Fee's going to be back for that, but I don't think they're going to sweep that 2-0. They
Mhm.
host Seattle, at LA, at Golden State, at Phoenix. These are all losable games. And they wrap up the year at Chicago and home to Minnesota. So the only win, I guess, is home to the Sky. I would play under again. I'm going to do another play of under 23 and a half. I think this is a team that's struggling. And I know Kelsey Mitchell's a really, really good player, but I'll pass on thinking they've got it all figured out. And some of their role players, Tipco, and I think is her name. I'm blanking on. She plays like the 5 or the 4. She's really, really good. Dantas, I really like her ability to stretch opposing defenses, but ultimately I'm taking under 23 and a half because they don't play a lick of defense.
Yeah, I mean, Kelsey and Aaliyah Boston are great players, right, for their starting five. But you're right, like losing two really big pieces here. I can't talk you off the under. I like it. I'm just not going to make it an official play personally, but it makes, like I said earlier, it makes a lot of sense to me.
Okay, before we get to today's slate, I just want to remind everyone if you like what you hear on our shows, sign up for the newsletter, get exclusive tips, and the free Insider magazine. Sign up for free at bettingweeklystudios.com. So good stuff last weekend. On the Friday show, I did take the Lynx -2.5. We got there. Nice rally against the Liberty, even though the steam was on the Libs. And we'll keep eye on the Minnesota as they play. But we'll pivot to the 5 games today, and let's start with that Liberty Lynx matchup. So this is their 4th matchup, and all of them started like 2 weeks ago. So they've had a nice run. This is game 1 of an NBA TV doubleheader, and the Liberty are up to 2.5-point home favorites. I should remind everyone that Minnesota's won all 3. Collier played the first game, and then the next 2, the Lynx took it to the Liberty. Now, Brianna Stewart's back practicing, but she's not expected to play tonight. So both teams down there like MVP candidate slash pass winner. New York was very deliberate with some of the post game comments from Saturday's loss, just talking about the physicality and things along those lines. Over under 166 and a half. The game flew over on Saturday. But that's because the Lynx have been really just pressuring, and Courtney Williams has come up big, things like that. I don't trust this Liberty team. I can't back them, but that does seem like the only side I would play in this game.
Yep, I am gonna take the bait here, Doug. I'm gonna make an official play. First game of the night, first official play. I do like the Liberty. You mentioned it. They actually played 3.5 good quarters against the Lynx their last time out. They were leading for the majority of it. They subbed in Sabrina Ionescu in that fourth quarter, and she was a no-show. I mean, let's be honest. Like without Brianna Stewart, you need Sabrina to play like a superstar. And I mean, she's been playing fairly well without Brianna, but that fourth quarter, she was disappointing. She couldn't get around anybody off the dribble. She didn't make any shots. She had a layup that she missed twice. So I think there's a little regression here. This is like a when you talk about revenge spot, when you talk about bounce back, when you talk about situational spots, this is also at home in New York. Like this, all the signs point to Liberty. Doug is absolutely right, though. It is scary backing a team like that doesn't play defense and without Brianna Stewart can't really close games. But I'm just gonna trust it, right? I'm gonna trust it and fire. It's gonna be a simple 1 unit play. I do like the Liberty today to get the bounce back and the win. Doug mentioned it. Lynx have won the last 3 games head to head this season, and they've won I think 9 out of 10 overall, and a lot of those games are without Collier. So they've been a wagon. They've been unstoppable. I think this is the game where you can fade them just because it's their value is so sky high right now.
Our research team at Bet Rivers giving us this nugget: the Liberty, following a road loss. Okay, right? They just lost in Minnesota. Have failed to cover the spread in 9 straight. So
Makes
something to
me like it
consider.
more. Makes me like
Yeah,
it more.
again, but a lot of moving parts, right? Different lineups, things like that. I agree. Sabrina's had some trouble lately, and we have some good comments in the comments section. Dave Adams remembering, as Doug has said, Sabrina not athletic and slow. PD likes Sabrina under points. Adam Osimo says under 22 and a half points plus assists. She's been under this number in 6 straight games. So I will say Sabrina's a very gifted shooter, and she does occupy the opposing team's defense. So a lot of her uh, unders are because she's consuming so much attention and she's a willing passer. So she's making the right basketball play. But she can't beat many defenders off the dribble, especially when Carrington comes in. But even when it's Courtney Williams or someone like that, McBride's been fine defensively moving her feet. But again, Sabrina's getting her teammates involved. There's a reason they've had in some other games like 5 players in double figures. It's because Sabrina's getting them open. So I like what she's doing in that regard in terms of assists. She even had double-digit rebounds, I want to say, in a recent game. But where's Jonquel Jones been? She's on the back of a milk carton right now. She's a former league MVP, last year's finals MVP. It just shows this team runs through Brianna Stewart so much that when she's out, they're trying to learn a new way of playing. And Mieselman can play the baby Jokic role, but it's hard to change your entire offense mid-season because when Stewie comes back, what are you going to do? This team's in a little bit of a disarray. I think the right side is Liberty, but I just can't trust this team. If there was a prop, I guess we see this in football, maybe the Super Bowl when there's a lot of prop backs. Most minutes led. Yeah, I'd absolutely be banging the Liberty here,
Mm.
but I just don't trust. They have too many lulls, especially defensively, and so I'm gonna pass, but I understand um, the spot play for this. But I would imagine your analytics aren't necessarily showing a time to fire on the Liberty here.
Yeah, and I would push back a little bit on changing their offense. They don't have to do that. They just need to sprinkle in one or two different sets. And what I'm alluding to is Sabrina right now is dribbling the ball up the court, which is fine, right? Like we're talking about simple point guard play. You're dribbling the ball up the court and you're starting the offense. I think they
Sometimes, I mean,
need
they have Cloud do it sometimes
I
and her
think
off the
so
ball running on
that's
screen.
that's the onus right there. I think Cloud should be starting the offense at least once or twice more per quarter, and that's going to completely change the complexity. Because I think if Cloud starts the offense up top and allows Sabrina to play in the corner or maybe play free throw line extended, and get the ball in a triple threat position, that's going to be much more, advantageous for her because we know she's not quick, she's not fast, she can't get around her players. We're hard on her. She's a great player, but we're hard on her because I expect a lot more. And I think if we put her in positions to succeed, I think that will help Sabrina play better, which would then have a domino effect, right? Jonquel will play better, Natasha Cloud will play better. But I think they need to put Natasha at the top more often, and I'm talking about once or twice more every quarter. That's it. We don't have to reconfigure the offense. We don't have to rebuild the offense. Just one or two more sets that we change and flip Sabrina and Natasha Cloud, and I think that would do wonders.
Yeah, I like her off the dribble. Again, I think it just shows you just like how valuable it is to have a fast player. Like Kelsey Mitchell's a weapon because she's so fast. Now, granted, I cherry pick this discussion, the fastest player in the league, perhaps, but getting those point guards on the scrap heap that some of these teams did, it was like very bad. Like Ari McDonald, having a point guard who can break everyone down and just attack and take advantage. I mean, that opens up so much. So I lean under for what it's worth. I think the physicality and the defense will be there. I think refs are going to swallow the whistle. I think it's going to be one of those games. So not quite yet on the play officially, but we have some time left in the show. Let's go to another game that I think is super intriguing. In fact, it's the second game of an NBA TV doubleheader. The Las Vegas Aces hosting the Atlanta Dream. This number's moved up towards the Aces. It was 1.5 overnight, now 2.5, over under 165.5. This Las Vegas team has now won 7 straight, percentage points behind Atlanta for the 4 seed. So the Aces have climbed to the 5th seed. Asia is now back in the MVP conversation. She was unanimous MVP a year ago. So I think that's ultimately going to do her in. But so much depends and hinges on how Fee looks when she comes back. I think missing a handful of games, she's missed 7 total. So she misses like 9. It's not the end of the world in a 44 game season. But if she doesn't look great, then we can see the gap closed. I do think Asia's the best player in the league. She's plus 475. She's carrying a team, but there's so much more to winning MVP. It's not just the best player, it's the best season. And a lot of the best season incorporates team performance. And obviously, the Lynx are going to finish with the best record. So that's part of it. There is voter fatigue. But in terms of this game, I love the Aces first quarter. And a couple reasons. I talked about it 2 weeks ago. When you bet the Aces that not game bet, so first quarter, first half, you should always do first quarter because Asia plays the entire first quarter. Okay. She sits the first 5 minutes of the second quarter. So the line value, because she's so valuable, is pronounced in the first quarter because the odds aren't different, right? Every 2.5 point favorite is going to be one in the first quarter, maybe half with some juice. So it's commensurate with the first half line and then the game line. So there's just line value because you get all of Asia for the entire first quarter. Also, the Dream, they're a good team. Don't get me wrong, but they got a lot of moving parts. Jordan Canada's expected to miss another game. She's their point guard. Maya Caldwell is expected to start for Atlanta. Griner's like off the bench. Ryan Howard's they're reincorporating into the lineup because she just returned from injury. And they just laid a giant egg in the first half, particularly the first quarter with the Valkyries, and then blew them out in the second half. So I just think there's going to be a lack of urgency for Atlanta coming off a win, whereas the last game they were coming off a loss. So I think Aces first quarter. I know they've won 7 straight, and there should be a flat spot here, but I don't think there will be. I think it's a bangable play. So I'm on first quarter for the Aces.
Yeah, so for me personally, I'm not on anything in this game. A lot of what Doug mentioned makes a lot of sense, and I honestly I don't think that there's a flat spot here, Doug, because I think both teams are in this thick playoff positioning hunt right now. Both teams are hot. I think Atlanta's won 8 of the last 10, Vegas 9 out of the last 10. So both teams are really, really hot coming in, good form. But the difference is head to head. The Vegas have dominated this head to head matchup the last couple years, including this year. I think they've won 8 of the last 10 head-to-head matchups, and I think they're going to continue to do so at home. The first quarter makes a lot of sense to me. The fact that Asia, basically sits out half of the second quarter, similar like Jokic on the Nuggets, right? And Jokic plays all of the first quarter and then sits a big chunk of that second quarter. So I normally don't touch Nuggets first halves for that reason. So that's good insight from Doug there.
Now, we have a comment from Adam Osimo. What about Asia over 23.5 points? I mean, she's been on a scoring tear, right? She only had 17 against the Liberty, 16 boards though, but she's gone for 27 plus in 5 of the last 6 games. So I just feel like at 23.5, it gets a little tricky. She had 24 exactly on the nose in the last matchup with Atlanta. Um, I just think it's not like a bounce back spot. I think our rebounds have been skyrocketing, but occasionally they won't be that high because the new starting lineup for Vegas is a factor. Like they're just playing differently, right? They have Kirsten Bell in the starting lineup. They also have Nalissa Smith, who's been crashing the boards a lot. I just feel like this team is really connected and really playing well. And Asia's rebounds prop is 11.5. So I don't want any part of that. I think she gets there, but I don't want any part of that. I just think first quarter, and if they're trailing, I might do a live bet in that regard, like over, repop Vegas.
Yeah, this team absolutely took off when they put Jewel Lloyd on the bench. She's a great player, but I think just in that role, she just makes this team a lot better. I think when it comes to Asia Wilson points prop plus rebounds prop, and the coaching staff has said this a few times now, is Asia can get whatever she wants. That 30-20 game last weekend, they basically said she can do that every game. We don't want her to, right? We want her to focus on other things and allows her teammates to pick up the slack. So in terms of like her prop market, it really just depends on the competitiveness of that particular game, right? And then secondly, if she has the energy to really, get those stats because she can get it anytime she wants.
She really can. That elbow jumper just opens up everything, the drives, the free throws that she can draw, things like that. So her prop, it's over 35.5 for points and rebounds. I think I think we're off on that graphic. I think it's 40.5 is the plot is the mark for okay, I'm sorry. I'm looking at PRA. So right. So 35.5 for points plus rebounds. So we were accurate there. And she's gotten, basically over this in every game except one in her last six. So or five, I should say. So it's going to be right around the number. She's probably going to get over. It's probably a safe play, but no automatic play right there. And someone has a good question, Adam Osimo. Before we move on, is Asia the best player all time in the W? And she's a three-time league MVP. I would say yes.
Yes.
But I have to do, really reflect back. Also, the game's evolved and it's a steep curve, right? So modern day players are much better. But if you go back, there were some absolute, ringers like Candace Parker, things like that. She was a, MVP as a rookie. But I do think Asia is that special of a player. And Albert gave the thumbs up. But Brad chiming in, Tarasi may have something to say about that. That's fair. She's a legend in that regard, but um, Asia really is special. Okay, we turn the page. The Dream just beat the Valkyries in Valhalla. Mercury road favorites against the Valks of 6.5. This has come up from 5.5, 154.5. Mercury with an impressive win in Seattle. That game came down to the wire. I don't think the shine's off the Valks. I really don't. I think they're limited. Obviously, they've lost Kayla Thornton for the year. I like them. I would lean to the dog here. I think laying 6.5 at that place against that team that plays so hard defensively and hunts mismatches and all that stuff, I think is really a little dicey. So I would say I still I still lean to the home dog. I'm not gonna that second half blowout at Atlanta is not gonna deter me from them.
I would say if you're on the Mercury here, you're going to be potentially chasing steam, right? Doug mentioned this opened up at 5.5, which is under 2 possessions, which is a key number in basketball, both NBA and WNBA. I would have liked that number for the Mercury, but not 6.5 and not 7 at some markets, right? So I agree with Doug at this number, the value is gone. They are coming off a loss. They are at home. We do know they have a great home court advantage and they play defense. So I'm leaning Valkyries here, but it's not enough to make a play. And I definitely would not be on Mercury. I know that.
I'm very reluctant to bet against the Valkyries pre-flop. They are an excellent, excellent first half team. And a really sharp guy asked me about my opinion on this on the Valks last game on Sunday against the Dream. He said one of his sharp friends bet the Dream minus 4.5 or something like that. And I said, look, I wouldn't bet against them pre-flop. You're going to get a better number at halftime, things like that, which ended up happening. But they covered and rolled and won by I believe 16. So the Valkyries are very good first half. They just are. Mercury off a big win. Something's just a little off. I think they get too complacent. The Mercury, I think it gets annoying, and Alyssa Thomas kind of plays with fire. And if you defend them and disrupt them a little bit, for as tough as they are, and AT is tough, they complain a lot, and they don't just next possession kind of coach mindset. So you can get them out of rhythm. But as I've said before, I think the Mercury are going to win it all. So um, they're on paper they should roll here, but I'm just not going to pull the trigger. It sounds like you're not either.
AT has some Luca vibes. That's how I kind of compare her. Just not the game, the playing style, but the impact on the game, and
Right.
how her body language. I mean, AT is an unbelievable player, and I'm sure Doug's gonna bring it up, but second right now in MVP odds, right behind Nafiza and right ahead of Asia. So she's a great player.
Yeah, she is. And what's cool about all three MVP candidates, they're all three kind of in the discussion for defensive player of the year. So that's awesome that they're actually, um, awesome defensively and they're doing it at both ends of the court. Let's go to another game. The Sun visit the Mystics. This Connecticut team's being feisty. Remember, they just blew that 20 plus point lead to the Fever, lost in overtime. That's certainly a factor. The Mystics now up to 6.5 point favorites. That's different because they've been sneaky dogs since the trade. They're winning games. They beat the Fever as a 7.5 point road dog. This is different. Lane 6.5 at home. Dolson, I believe, is out for Washington. So it's a different ask for this team to be laying points on the. I just wonder the mindset of this Connecticut team. It's either a team you want to bet on in the first quarter or don't bet on them at all in this game.
So this is going to be my second official play. Doug mentioned it. Mystics are not a team that should be playing as a 6.5 point favorite. I like the Sun in this one. Give me the Sun plus 6.5. So the Mystics have been underdogs, I believe, 5 games in a row. 5 games in a row. They won outright as an underdog 4 of those times. That is unbelievable ROI. If you took the money line on any of those, 5 games, that's incredible. But now you're expecting them to come back home and win by 7 plus. I don't see it. I like the Connecticut Sun. They've been feisty all season long, even though their record is horrible. They are a pretty good covering machine. I think they're 17 and 16 ATS, and I can make an argument, even though they're 6 and 27 overall, they're not the worst team. I think they
Correct.
are. I think they play better basketball than the Sky and in some respects the Dallas Wings. So I like Connecticut tonight, and I like it when no one's really expecting them to play well, and that is what tonight is. They're on the road. There's a lot of off the court, I guess, drama or controversy about the sale of the team and where they're moving and things like that. And I think the players on the court are just gonna, say "eff it" and really focus on basketball. And I think they're gonna be able to cover. And when I'm on a dog, and Doug knows this, when I'm on the dog and pretty confident on the dog, I sprinkle a little bit on the money line as well, and I'm gonna do that tonight with the Sun.
That's the only side I would play. And I know another sharp group that's on the plus points here. So that means I know two people. I would say this: I was really close to playing Sun first quarter and first quarter money line. I think when you blow that lead, they're going to come out like gangbusters. And frankly, this Washington team is a slow starter. Yeah, they won in Indiana against the Fever as this big dog, but if you remember last time I was on the show, I laid the four first half, and the Fever covered. So this Mystics team is a slow starting team now. Shakira Austin is back, so no Dolson, as I mentioned, in the starting lineup. That's big because she's a giant weakness on defense. So that does change things for the Mystics because they have their starting lineup. Everyone's a bucket. Citron, Kiki, Shakira Austin, and then Melbourne and Sutton. Like that's a good starting lineup, all things considered. And Citron's really found a groove, and she's, I guess, making a little noise in the Rookie of the Year discussion. I think it'll be an up and down pace. I might look at some Sun team total. I don't think much of this Mystics team at all. So hmm, I'm looking to play something like that. But the Sun do bring it. They've been a feisty underdog. You said it, Albert. They've been really competitive in that regard, and they got some talent. And since moving Lacan to the starting lineup and Sanaya Rivers to the bench, they've been really good. So you know what? I'm going to play Sun team total over 75 and a half. I don't know if they cover because I think the Mystics can really are potent, but I think these are connected. I'll take the over 75 and a half uh, team total for the Sun. I think they make it happen here.
I like that a lot.
Um,
Marina's gonna have at least 7 or 8 three-point attempts. So if she's hot, this number is gonna fly over. But let's give props to the Washington front office. We don't really talk about WNBA front offices often just because we're not familiar with them, but they traded away Sykes. Maybe they knew something we didn't, right? Seattle goes on this long losing streak with Sykes, and then now Washington, again, I
wow.
mentioned it, 5 straight underdogs and won those games, 4 outright wins as an underdog. That is unbelievable.
They're a half game back of the playoffs. We all thought they were going for the long term, mortgaging the future by trading Sykes, one of their all stars. And to your point, they've ripped it off. Now they're in the discussion right now, right? Sparks have some company, so they're both 12 and a half back at the top. So they're each a half game back of Seattle. And so things have certainly changed. And you're right. This front office completed a heist of the Chicago Sky, who might be the worst front office in all of basketball. How about this trade? They traded one season of Ariel Atkins, right, to Chicago for the number 3 overall pick, 4 years of Sonia Citron on a rookie deal.
Ooh.
So, and they asked for it. The number one rule of sales, you're never gonna get anything you don't ask for. They got a pick swap in a couple of years from now as well with the Sky. And I think they threw in a second round pick. So they absolutely heist. It just shows you how stupid the Chicago Sky front office is. And that's why they're such a disaster right now in several ways. So good on the Mystics here. Sean asking, what about the Mystics team total over 82 and a half? Offense has been hot recently. I don't know. I think this is could be a dud spot here. I think they're going to start slow. Um, we don't like the Mystics money line, so I think I would proceed with caution there, Sean. That would be my reaction. What about you, Albert?
That's a layoff on me because that's kind of counter to what I'm on, right? I like to be on correlated side. So if I'm on the Sun spread, then I'm not going to be anything on the Mystics. That's how I am across every single sport. If let's say hypothetically, it's an NFL game and I'm on the Dallas Cowboys, like I'm not going to be on Dak Prescott unders, right? Things like that. So it's going to be correlated, and I think that's why it's smart to have one bet. sometimes, right? Parlays are not the way to go all the time. But one thing that's interesting, Mystics to make the playoffs, Doug, plus 475 at Bet Rivers.
Well, problem with this is you're going to need the Valkyries to fade or the Storm to fade, and I agree. The Storm have been a mess. They snapped their what 6 or 7 game skid, get a win, and then go back to losing. It's live. I wouldn't bet the minus 910. I mean that goes without saying. The question is plus 475. I just would pick my spots better with the point spread, like when they're dogs again. I mean, we're singling out the Storm, but there's a chance the Valkyries fade. Heck, there's a chance the Fever fade if these injuries keep happening. I don't know if their training staff is on high alert, but you never know. Valkyries are minus 500 after a couple nice wins last week. Um, yeah, I think ultimately the Mystics might fade, but you never know. I just think Shakira Austin's like health is she's so in and out of the lineup. The Storm are now plus 380. That was probably plus 1,000 at some point recently, maybe even higher. So right now, I think I'm good. I think West made one a couple weeks ago on the Sparks plus 117. I think we bet the Valkyries on the yes too. I got to go back and check. I would pass on that prop. How about you?
Yeah, no read for me, just interesting. I would say out of those teams that need to fade, I would say Fever, in my opinion, have the biggest chance to fade just because of injuries and all the, disarray when it comes to their starting lineups. We also know with Caitlin Clark, if and when she comes back, she's not going to be 100%. So that might actually be counterproductive, right? If you bring in 80% Caitlin Clark and you expect her to be 100%, that's going to hurt the team.
Remember early last year, I mean, she had just got in the WNBA, but there was a lot of standing around. They had to learn how to play with her because she's ball dominant, but also such a shooter and passer. So I think it's a little tricky because they've adjusted to playing a certain way, right? Through Kelsey Mitchell, through I mean, who knows now, Odyssey Sims, and they just picked up Shea Petty. So there's a lot of moving parts. You're right, and I'm not the biggest believer in Stephanie White. So we'll see how it all unfolds. One final game to get to discuss here on the show, and that is the Storm visiting the Chicago Sky. We've mentioned both these teams in certain manner. Seattle 11 point road favorite, total 158 and a half. Now the Sky are an absolutely horrendous second half team. I mean, they score like 30 points a lot in the second half. But I'd lean Seattle here. I think they open up a can.
Is this the closest thing to a must win that we've had so
It
far
is.
on the
It is
show?
a must win.
Yeah, like if Seattle somehow loses this game to the arguably the worst team in the league, they are not making the playoffs. And even if they make the playoffs, the vibes are going to be gone because they were playing so well. We were high on this team heading into the trade deadline, heading into the All-Star break, making that move for Brittany Sykes. We thought that was surgical in that respect. It allowed, like Skylar Diggins a little more time off, but man, they have been struggling. And I would say if they don't get it done tonight, and I'm just talking about straight up winning, I'm going to write Seattle off. But I agree. I think from a spread standpoint, which is Doug mentions it as the great equalizer, from a spread, a minus 11 standpoint, it's Seattle or pass for me.
I mean, just to put it in perspective, they hosted the Valkyries the other day. Golden State led 42-40 at half. Okay. They won by 31.
Yeah.
This team, Chicago scored 19 in the second half. They're horrendous. And I don't know if it's coaching or they just try really hard early. And then at some point, the other team. So I'll lay the 11. I'll lay the 11 with Seattle. I think it's a get right spot. Frankly, I might personally just bet the money line. I just don't see how they lose this game. But I will say, like, Chicago's a little healthier, right? Ariel Atkins is back in the starting lineup. Uzun, their more natural point guard, is starting. And that allows Rachel Banham to play off the ball and she can shoot lights out. So, and then Elizabeth Williams is decent. Cardoso's okay, I guess. I like Onyenwere. I'm surprised she hasn't evolved since she was playing well with the Liberty a few years ago. So this team is just lacking talent, right? And I think the Seattle just lights them up. This is a bad Chicago Sky team when Angel Reese is even in the lineup, but when she's out of the lineup, they're horrendous. So I'll lay the 11. We'll watch this game and it'll be like 10-4 timeout. We're like, why didn't I lay the 11? So I'm just going to try to do that right now, pre-flop, and not mess around.
Yeah, sounds good. I think it's a Seattle or nothing for me. And I think, the Sky, you mentioned it's a talent disparity or a lack of talent. I actually think it's lack of coaching. I think that plus the talent discrepancy is bad because when you watch the Chicago Sky play, it's almost like you're watching a pickup game. they're not running anything. And I know they've dealt with injuries all season long. I know Angel Reese is a great player, so when she's out, it's hard to adjust. But these are professional basketball players. They need to be able to, run a couple set plays. They need to run some action off the ball, and they don't do any of that. It's actually, to me, it's insane to watch.
It is insane, but I don't know. I think the verdict's still out on Tyler Marsh. I think he doesn't have any talent. Now, Dave Adams chiming in the chat. Angel may be coming back tonight. It's supposed to be a game time decision. I thought she was just back practicing, so I guess we can monitor that. Um, Okay, fair enough. I'd still think that they're just going to be blown out. I really think it's going to be one of those games because they're disoriented. And if she comes back, Elizabeth Williams goes to the bench, and I'd almost rather her come back. I just think she's limited against this front line of Seattle. So I'd be fine either way.
So quickly here, Doug, I do have a question for you. You mentioned Chicago, the worst second half team in the league. Why are you playing this game pre-flop and not just waiting till halftime?
Well, we can't sort of expect it's the value of the show doing right, like the parameters of the show. But I will say this: the last time they Storm had a loss and they played the Sky, they beat them by a million from the start. They were up 25. They covered first quarter, first half, and game. And I think we're going to see that situation. The spot is just so overwhelmingly good for Seattle. Whereas the Valkyries, the reason they were only up 2 at half is they were off a big win in DC when they played the Mystics, led by 20 at half and hung on. So the spot wasn't good. So I was expecting a slow start for the Valkyries, and that's why they were a good second half play. But I think Seattle's got to have some sense of urgency. Off the loss to Phoenix, they cannot mess around. You mentioned it for must win, and yeah, I mean first half I'd even look to, but ultimately I don't think it's I think there's a scenario where even though it's must win, they could be sort of tight at half because I think the Sky do have capabilities to play well and flashes. So I'll just lay the 11 for the game because I think the second unit and 30. I mean, it's like, what am I worried about Haley Van Lith when she's in? No, they'll just blow them out even more. So I think Seattle rolls them. It could be from the start, but at some point they're going to roll them.
I like it.
All right. Okay, that's going to do it for this edition of Betting Weekly Fast Break. Sorry for the confusion. If you were misled a little bit, we will have shows every day the rest of this week. That's 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. Of course, we also have Betting Weekly Hardball, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. A lot of good stuff out there. With football season starting, we know Jimmy Ott's got College Sports Rush with Paul Stone. That gets posted today and Thursday with week 0 coming along. We also have the 10 tomorrow, which covers Big Ten football. So we'll have some awesome stuff with all these seasons overlapping, and it's exciting and fun time of year for sports fans. So we will have you covered here on the Bet Rivers Network and the Betting Weekly umbrella. So for Albert Nguyen and everyone else behind the scenes that does such an awesome job making everything look so good with producing, research, graphics, directing, you name it, I'm Doug Kezirian, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.